do with it. So your question was about what's special about FPGA DACs and what's different about the Chord DACs compared to a chip DAC. I can't answer that in 5 minutes. I won't be able to answer that in 5 hours. I might do a good job in 5 days. So it's complicated. My background is I've been designing digital DACs since 1989. First started getting involved in FPGAs in 1995, so I've been doing it for a very long time. I've also worked with major semiconductor companies, selling my IP to them. So I've designed silicon chips as well as designing high-end audio devices. So I know the issues about silicon chips, the problems with audio devices, and I, of course, understand about FPGAs and how they work. So the benefit you have with an FPGA is that you can do exactly what you want to do at a relatively low cost. So if you're designing a silicon chip, it's going to cost you many millions of dollars to develop that. You need to sell it in large volumes. And so you're very limited in what you can do technically. With an FPGA, it's going to cost more because your silicon cost is much more than a standard silicon chip, but you can do what you like. The other big advantage is that standard silicon chips have problems with noise from the digital section going through the substrate and upsetting the analog section. And you have to go through very strong techniques to mitigate these problems, but you can never solve them. And one of the ways you mitigate it is to use a differential structure. You have to use a differential structure. The downside to that is that you end up with a very complex analog section because you've got differential I to V converters, then you have to compare the two with a differential to single-ended converter, and then you have to have a buffer for your output stage. So your analog electronics is by necessity complicated, and there's filters involved in that as well. With an FPGA design, the FPGA is not the DAC. The FPGA creates the digital data, and the conversion is done with discrete components. But because it's discrete components with a separate power supply, completely separate from the digital section, we don't have to worry about noise from the digital processing upsetting the analog section. And that means it can be single-ended. It means that we can have a very, very simple analog section. In my case, it's only one amplifier. So that does the I to V conversion and the output stage all in one device. So the analog section is very, very simple. The filtering is very simple because the noise shaper runs at 104 megahertz. Most Delta Sigma DACs, they run at 3 megahertz. So that means there's a lot of noise from 100 kilohertz and above. With mine, because it's running at much higher frequency, the noise is much less, so your filtering requirements is less. That makes your analog better. So that's one benefit of an FPGA approach compared to a chip DAC. The other thing that's very important is the interpolation filter. And this is about transient reconstruction and the accuracy of transients. Perceptually, transients make a huge difference to the sound quality. So the brain uses the timing of transients to work out where instruments are located in space, to help separate instruments into individual entities. It uses transients to recognize the timbre of the instrument. It uses transients obviously for starting and stopping of notes. And it uses the transient information to determine pitch, particularly low frequency pitch. Regular interpolation filters have very poor transients, reconstruction accuracy. So the timing of your transients is constantly shifting backwards and forwards. And this makes it difficult for the brain to follow what's going on with the music. So your instrument separation degrades, your timbre degrades, your soundstage and space degrades. By having lots of processing power, which I have with an FPGA, and using a specially optimized filter, which I call a WTA filter, means I radically improve the transient reconstruction accuracy. And this gives much, much better sound. But to do that, you need two things. You need to have the WTA algorithm, which is unique, which has been developed over many, many years with thousands of listening tests to optimize the performance. And you need to have a lot of computing capacity, which we get with the appropriate sized FPGA. So that's, in a nutshell, as simple as I can make it, the principal benefits of my FPGA approach compared to putting a chip DAC inside the DAC.